Um, 8K is the maximum you can store right now in a single contract instance. They're going to expand that, but in terms of metadata, like that's quite a bit, really. And then at the same time, you could be referencing other things, like you could have image links, and then those would then be pointing to individual images or videos, or maybe you had some kind of schema or something that was very large. You could have some kind of JSON schema definition that might be linked from your metadata that could be very large. I mean, really, there's all kinds of possibilities.
What is JSON again? I always hear that term, but like no one ever really explains it.
JavaScript object notation, I think is technically the definition of it.
What's it do?
So it's just a file format, basically, for data exchange. It's just a standard kind of way of, it's like if you have, it's like an early example. Like if I wanted to give someone, like do a mail merge or something like that, and provide fields to someone to like send a bunch of emails or something, then you need to have some way of breaking data out into like a logical structure of like, this is a record and these are things within it, like someone's contact information, like your name, address, your zip code, stuff like that. So you have like CSV files, which is just a comma separated value. CSV can technically be tab delimited sometimes. But basically, you just have some way of saying like, I have this format, and here is how you read it for lots of different possible encodings. So the complexity with even simple things like a CSV file of saying like, for each row, which is like new line delimited, then the fields will be comma delimited. Well, then you run into issues. Well, okay, what happens if I've got commas in the values themselves? Then you need to have some kind of escaping mechanism or quoting mechanism to say that the comma is allowed to be in the field. So it very quickly turns into kind of a mess. Then it's like, well, what if I want to name the fields? Well, then okay, let's say if the first record of a CSV file, let's just has an option to tell people that these are the names of the fields, right? Well, JSON is just kind of like a self-describing format in a sense, and you really only have a couple options you can have. And I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's basically you have numbers, strings, or objects, and or lists or arrays in a sense, and that's basically it. So you just have a very simple format that it is easy to write out and it's easy to parse back in. And so it's just a way of having a common interchange file format. And then you had XML was a common one, but XML is a variant of HTML, kind of like a superset. But it's just very, very, very verbose, particularly compared to JSON. JSON's pretty verbose as well, but it's just a way of having a self-describing format that you can exchange and have something on the other side read it and read it accurately without any kind of a weird convoluted syntaxes. Like YAML is easy to read, but YAML to parse it is hideous. It's like a really horrible format. And so JSON's very clean and simple, and so it's a lot of times it's widely used, and also JavaScript. It's in browsers that natively supports it. So it's like you give a JSON object in a sense to JavaScript code, it can just directly like read the data from that JSON as if it was just in the code in a sense. If that makes any sense. Starting to get kind of in the weeds.
I think the important thing is that it's the standard format. I mean, it's since JSON came on the scene, that's become the standard format for communicating data between two hosts. Whether you are actually doing communication or if you're reading configuration data, they always use JSON at this point. And
I missed it. Where is that spec published? I was trying to find see if it was on the website, but I don't see a link or any. Can you post it? Can you post a link to the spec?
Well, it's kind of an industry standard. It's not something
No,
specific to Algorand.
Not
Yeah. Sorry.
But I
Patrick's
corrected
spec, yeah.
the NFD spec, not the JSON. Yeah, not the JSON spec.
Oh, yeah. Let me post. It's really just a matter of doing of how you get mutability for metadata on ASAs. So let me, like, you can't, like, all we can post here are Twitter links, right?
Yeah, I think all you can do is pin a tweet, but you should tweet it and tweet that GitHub and then pin it up.
All right, I'm on it. Give me a second.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So I want to pose a question. How can we as creators upgrade the experience of minting an NFT to protect the creators more and try to eliminate right-click save or download file and things like that? Like, what are the next steps kind of getting toward that goal?
I mean, one of the obvious ones is that once the NFT has functionality, you can't right-click save the functionality. You can just right-click save the actual visual image that represents the true NFT.
Yeah, it'd be like right-click saving an Octorand, right? It's like there's no point because you have none of the cool stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah, I mean, the only other like there's different classes of those kinds of things, right? Like there's and I can imagine NFT where the content itself is what you want people to pay for access to, right? Like if you're streaming a movie, it's a limited use case, but right, the only way to do that would be with traditional like DRM stuff where you encrypt the content and distribute keys to the people who buy.
Well,
Yeah,
No one's kicking me out of the basement.
yeah, 100%. That's the right-click save, like functionality of like even actually the duplicating it on a different chain. Once the actual NFT itself has functionality and network effects, that's just going to go away. I mean, like say for example, Project Monarch. Somebody uses the protocol to build a DAO with smart NFTs, and yeah, like sure, there's a visual representation, but somebody on another chain could steal it or right-click save and relaunch it, but it would lose all of the network effects of the actual true value of that NFT. I just think this is actually a near-term problem, and like once NFTs are really pushed to use for what they're going to do to actually change the world, it'll just be a moot point at that point.
Hey, Chris, with that said, should we even concern ourselves with the validity of the metadata that's, like I pointed out to you on Discord, the metadata that was hashed incorrectly from Yellow?
Probably. I think that is definitely an issue because it doesn't actually follow the standard. That's the biggest issue I think with that one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly. So what Robert's talking about is that the reach thank you tokens. I used a platform to mint them that didn't properly encode the hash code of the metadata in as the actual hash, and when you try to decode it, it doesn't actually match the two things. That's a problem. So I'm trying to figure out how big of a problem that is if I want to actually reissue new reach thank you tokens, or be like, hey, well, this is one of the special things about the reach thank you token.
So I guess like, what if an NFT just doesn't have utility like that? We can't expect every single artist to have coding ability. I would say now the infrastructure needs to be built for an artist who's purely an artist, a painter, or something like that. To like all they want to do with the NFT is just make sure no one can steal their work, and they can publish it somewhere where no one can steal it. There's almost no infrastructure built right now for someone to give utility to their NFT or NFT series without coding prowess. And people who do it on Algorand right now, they either hire a coder or something like that. But I don't think it's realistic to expect everyone to learn how to do that. So The infrastructure needs
hot
to be
take,
built.
hot take incoming. NFTs are special because of the community they represent, and not so much about the actual art itself. That art does actually matter, but not nearly as much as what the sense of belonging that people get by purchasing them. And as part of that, this is why when you see the value of the NFTs out there that are so high, it's because of the community behind it and less about the actual art itself. I believe that once the infrastructure is catching up, I mean, I agree that artists can't be expected to know how to code, but there are, once again, the Monarch protocol is going to be an entire minting process that will make it easy for somebody like an artist to be able to use true on-chain utility for their arts. But even so, then is like it's less about the art and more about what the artist or the creator puts into the sense of belonging of actually owning that thing that people really are flocked to.
My hot take is that that's not really a hot take, because I think we all know that. What I think is that in this past year, since NFT profile picture series and etc. have blown up, that has become what people realized. It's not really about the art. It's about more what can you get from holding this, and the art is just a pretty representation of that community. But what if, let's say, Rafiq Anadol, the digital artist who debuted his piece down in Miami during the week of Decipher, he doesn't seem like the kind of person who's gonna make a Discord, right? Like it's for him, it's pretty much just about the art. His pieces are unique, so you can't really steal them. But I'm talking about like artists who they're a digital artist. Let's say they don't really want to, like, well, you could make the argument that all art and all artists, Picasso, Andy Warhol, whatever you want, holding their art is partially for the, how cool you think it is, and partially for the clout. Like, oh, I have a Picasso in my house. It's for the clout. Like, you don't really need it. Like, it's for, and it might look cool, but it's more like, yeah, you can say it. And you're part of that community, but it's an offline community. How can we make sure that artists who they don't really they don't have a plan to make their art like a ticket into a community. They just want to give people art that's looks good. Maybe NFTs aren't for them.
I don't understand your questioning here. Like, what that is that it's a business opportunity for somebody to build a platform for artists to be able to take advantage of, infrastructure. I mean, like that's it's not going to be good enough to just launch an NFT and hope people love it. You need to be able to find and work with, as an artist or that wants to actually create a community, you need to work with the people to build those things so that they can actually have that sense of belonging.
Yeah, I agree with Chris on that note. Sorry to interrupt. But I get it. Like, as an artist, I want to build a community. In order to get your name out there, you have to build a community. I could just make a song and just put it out there and hope that someone buys it. But unless I put the work in to actually build a community, more than likely, no one's going to buy it.
I kind of disagree a little bit with the discourse. I feel like there's definitely value to people who like content has value, right? Like there's a reason why like Instagram is popular and people just releasing pictures and that's it, and that's all it is. They don't have to work to gain followers. All they do is release pictures, and sometimes if the pictures are good enough, the community comes after, right? And they don't have to market themselves. They don't have to do anything. And same thing with YouTube, right? There are plenty of content creators who just release good content and people want to look at that good content. And I think that
the issue with that though is that it's because of Instagram, it's because of YouTube, it's because of those algorithms deciding who is they're the kingmaker. Who do they put those images in front of is actually what is the thing that drives the people. I'm not saying that the content doesn't actually matter to individuals. I'm really talking about if a artist wants to become popular or wants to actually generate that community. It is important about the infrastructure, because without Instagram and the discoverability, or YouTube and the discoverability, then that they would not be discovered. You know what I mean? So so in the NFT space, it needs that infrastructure for the artist to launch on top of, so that they can create that community.
So that part I agree with. I was just gonna say, I mean, there's also like examples of Reddit where it's a lot less like algorithm driven, right? It's like people voting and ranking the content and the human group around it. But you're still right that it's a platform that's driving the views to the content and creating the value for the content. But there still needs to be I don't think I think there's always going to be a market for good content, and there has to be systems, like to answer Ibu's questions, there does have to be systems that rank, sort, and basically verify the originality of content by some format, right? Like there's a reason why YouTube has Content ID to answer Ibu's question, right? Like the platform itself is doing some moderation.
Jeff, do you want
Yeah,
to
the
speak?
technology layer, the technology layer still needs work, but if we're talking about community building and how all of these like factor into value, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, and like in that case, it's not the NFT that has. Sorry, just the last thing. It's not the NFT. It's the discoverability is outside the NFT, right? Like it's the content viewing platform that's creating the utility there. So like not all NFTs need to have a ton of utility. The NFT itself can just be content, and there can be a platform built around that, right? It's not that every NFT has to have all the discoverability baked in.
Yeah, and you know what? The point I was trying to make is that, I mean, Chris, I'm not like actually taking the opposite stance from you. I'm on the same side, but what I'm saying is, I would love to personally like build, if I could, build a platform for artists that's basically like a sandbox, you know, like a box of Legos essentially, metaphorically, that they can then take their art, their creation, and build a community around it, but in a much more focused and curated way, because I honestly think like the Discord method and like it's just really like inefficient, and it's not really like a true on-chain solution. It doesn't really like fully integrate many aspects of holding that NFT, and if it does, you have to code in some bots and different stuff like that. You know, you just can't really expect everyone to be able to do that. I think there has to be like a platform built where you can say, yep, I have an ASA, I have a series, this is it, and these are all the things I want people to be able to do. And then you can, if you have coding experience, you can take it from there, but the primitives have to be there to kind of like give people like, it's like an NFT community launchpad. Like if they're going to be token launchpads, there could be NFT community launchpads as well.
I agree with that completely. I mean, this is once again what we're doing with the Monarch protocol, is that it's not just about the protocol, but it's the minting tool that can make it so that NFT creators can automatically create full on-chain DAOs. But yeah, I agree that those things need to happen, but I mean, it's not like they're not being built.
Yeah, the medium for
excuse me, guys,
communication.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just two words. You know, like many people are requesting to speak, so I'm kind of trying to do a fair rotation. So if you are taken out, it's just because there are too many requests and you don't intervene too much.
I won't have that problem below.
One of the things I brought up a few times this week was that artists are very concerned with getting the royalties from their work. And when an NFT is transferred from one person to another, that they get a piece of that sale. So we've seen a few solutions to that problem introduced by different marketplaces, but the standardization of that and making that that has to become predominant, I think, for artists to be more satisfied.
But on that point too, it's like there would have to be a lot of systems set up for the legality of payments of royalties, right? Like in crypto, we are able to kind of easily skirt around a lot of the regulations that have been established for many decades in the traditional financial sectors. But when it comes to something like, you know, if I put out a song and I want to like go straight to the consumer and get 100% of all the royalties from that, you know, I have no idea what the legal ramifications of that are, taxes, etc. You know, and these are kind of just the logistical, more boring questions that I think whoever makes these kind of protocols will have to answer. And you know, I'll look into it too. And we have Dequency and Opulus, but you know, they haven't really opened up to like your average musician yet. So you know, who's really to say?
Yeah, that's a huge concern. I think the question, and fortunately we're able to learn from other networks where that is the standard. Big question that needs to be answered, but the other networks, that is the de facto. That's how they operate right now. And when they look at minting NFTs on Algorand, they say, "Oh, I'm not going to get anything on a resale of this NFT."
I think a lot of that will. That's the thing, is we're in this kind of this state of flux a little bit. I think the ABI spec for smart contracts will change a lot, and then we'll still be a bit of a waiting game. But realistically, like NFT on Ethereum, like ERC 720, 1155, I think, things like that, they're literally just an interface specification. It's just like a contract that has these methods that says buy, sell, like what's your URL, things like that, is what can be seen as being like an NFT. So the same thing will happen with Algorand, where a smart contract itself becomes an NFT, and wallets and explorers will recognize it. And when that happens, then having the contract itself enforce its own royalty mechanism then becomes quite easy. Whereas with ASAs, you basically have to kind of have either a wrapping mechanism or some kind of enforcement where the ASA can only move via some gated, like if you want to have the ASA and have it still work and still be kind of how NFTs work, the ASA is controlled by a separate contract and can only move via that contract and its ownership. But yeah, I think we'll just see it more over time with Algorand.
This is why you and I, Patrick, are best friends.
Why is that?
Because we just think so much alike.
I mean, we're just, that's the thing, is that's why, hey, actually something kind of about jumping rails, but somewhat related. You'll like this, Chris. And this is also why the NFT contracts, I don't lock them, because they will change. Like all these things coming down the pike that I really want to make sure NFTs are always providing the best experience for users and take advantage of everything that Algorand offers. But one thing that I just put in the contract code a couple nights ago is users will be able to lock their NFT if they want. So those be a contract call, and then we'll expose it like an UI, like a little padlock or something. Whereas if you want to make it so that your NFT can never change, like the actual contract code, you as the owner of it will be able to lock it. And then
look at you, Patrick. Look at you.
And then Transaction Lab will not be able to upgrade the contract code of that at all unless the user unlocks it. So basically what it'd do is it'd be like, here's version 1, it'll be a property of the contract. It'll say this is the version that would show that. And the user viewing that through our website would see like a little padlock that's open. It would be default unlocked, because we want to be able to upgrade these things, because that's what most users expect. They don't understand all these things, but for the users who really care, they can say, I love this contract code, it's fine by me, lock it, and then it could never be touched by us. And then only the owner could unlock it again. And then they would then be able to, most likely through the site, say, hey, upgrade my version. And then we'd be able to do so, but only if you had unlocked it or had left it unlocked.
I mean, I agree with that about 90%. The last 10% I would actually default to locked, and because I think it would make sense more to that, because users have no idea what's going on, they would not know to actually to lock it. And your website interface, when people go to, modify or look at it, it could say, hey, we have a new update, would you like us to update? And then you could actually have them triggered on until the update, and then allow them to trigger back off. But that's just me, and I think that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the when I originally implemented it, I made it so it did default lock, and I've already had to go back and cheat on my tests and stuff. But I think it's just talking to the team. It just the reality is it would, like, any place that adds friction, I want to take a serious look at. There shouldn't be friction for the user experience. And there's, like blockchain, nerds that, will obsess over it, fine, they lock it. But the average user, they don't understand this. They just want, value and utility. And I think having it default locked, particularly as new features were added, if, obviously we'll try very hard to make sure that anything that's added is always kind of additive. But it's quite possible that, something could change where it's like, well, in order for this to really work, because, we're changing how the ASAs are handled, or we're changing some aspect of the NFT being this independent account, that would require, potentially some incompatible changes. So it's quite possible that, a user with the old version, it might not quote work anymore.
Yeah. So, but
like to avoid that, but
my always pushback here is not because of us curmudgeon blockchain people that don't want things changing, but it is actually, to me, a security thing that a contract should not be able to be modified, and defaulting to locked, to me, because let's be honest, like, you launch this with a default to lock, 0.01% will actually ever push that button because they don't know why, because they're not educated. But like educating them of that, the reason why you would lock this is if they're, the creator keys were compromised or anything, somebody couldn't actually change things without you knowing, or things of that sort. It's just that, like, I don't. The reason why to actually lock things is because of security and safety, and I don't think people actually know enough to care about security and safety, personally.
Yeah, I mean, there's no magic answer here. I mean, clearly, I mean, that's the thing, is just hiding kind of the least worst. Decide the least worst, because they each have their pros and cons.
The necessary evil.
Yeah. But I mean, I just, it's like Chris and I arguing that these are the sort of things that, if you're just, whether my Telegram or it's in Twitter, it's very, very, very obvious that the vast, vast majority of people in crypto don't really understand any of it. And, that's not a slam or anything. It's just reflecting that a lot of this isn't that obvious, or it's sometimes pretty complicated. And I think it's just a matter of, figuring out, the right balance.
Hey guys, I just wanted to mention real quick that, like, I understand both your takes, right? But locking contracts actually doesn't guarantee security. Like, we've seen lock contracts be compromised, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, that is in some ways that's a different kind of argument, right? We've seen the downsides of locked contracts, because basically you had this active hack and Tinyman, and they could do nothing about it, right? Like, if they've been able to modify that contract, they could have prevented the hemorrhaging very quickly with a very simple fix.
They could have integrated the same kind of like lock and unlock feature. It's like, okay, we have the fix. If you want to wait till the new contracts, you got to wait 2 weeks. But if you want to get the quick update, you can do 10. They could have.
No, they couldn't have. It's because of the structure. Like, the reason why Patrick and John can do it is because they were smart with how they're architecting everything, where each individual users is its own contract. With Tinyman, it's one big application. So yes, you could, turn it off, but who decides then? Who turns it on or turns it off? That wouldn't work.
You could have implemented the liquidity pool so that it's separate contracts for every person who stakes liquidity, right?
No, not an Algorand.
With AVM 1.1, you probably could.
Maybe.
It gets interesting.
I mean, even then, though, Patrick, like if you're looking at, thousands of people. I mean, the thing with XO, no, because even with the AVM 1.1, you can only ever look at dynamically 3 different users, local, or 3 different users' information. So I don't think that would be possible at all. The main best case scenario is you can actually build out each pool being its own contract. That's what Humble's doing. But yeah, I don't think that you could actually do individual contracts, even with the 1.1 with the contract calls, because of the limitation of how many users you could actually pull in a call. But this is a technical thing, and probably most people here don't even care.
Yeah, it is. Like, and we have so many subjects. What do you think, Chris, about the new governance vote that is coming soon?
I think it's awesome. I think it's something that's extremely needed. I think this is just the first step. I think that's what you're going to end up having is like super delegates, where people can then delegate their votes to in a open way to actually be able to give and take away, not like election cycles, but more of like a, hey, if you're doing everything right, I'll give it to you. When you start doing things wrong, I'll take away right away. The problem with the decentralized DAOs in general, the bigger they are, the more votes that have to happen, the much slower they move. So building a system like this and being able to actually have delegates, I think it's extremely important, and I am 1000% for this next vote.
Yeah, me too. Especially the fact that we will be able, like the ex-governors will be able to post proposals. That is so exciting because it won't be as centralized, because the way you put the question obviously directs all the rest.
Right, but I'm actually curious how they're going to structure this. Like, I think that really it should be a full system where the amount of power a delegate has is based off of the amount of people behind them supporting them, and I think that's super important.
And I think they're also taking the criteria of time as a governor. I think it's awesome, because it's the commitment of each ex-governor that will be like validated and taken into account, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I would love to hear an argument against this next proposal, because anybody out there that want to take a shot at why this is a bad idea?
For everybody, including myself, who don't know what the next proposal is, can we mention it in brief?
Sure, I can read it for you. All right, I'll do the short version. Option A, the governors support the creation of a new DAO-based tier of governance, XGov, with the power to formulate, evaluate, and propose measures to be put to vote. Option B, the governors prefer the Algorand Foundation continue in its current role of curating and exclusively proposing measures for community vote, in addition to facilitating the vote itself. The foundation supports option A. So it's basically like delegates versus only the foundation can propose changes.
Thanks, Ibu.
I mean, I definitely support the change that anyone should be able to propose, but I just don't want people getting lazy with delegating. And I also think the creation of on-chain politicians is, I don't know, that's a slippery slope, because if someone gets a whole lot of votes, they, can kind of rug their constituents by doing the decision that they didn't really want, the constituents didn't really want to do. Like, let's say people put faith in me, and they're like, I got 10 million algo allocated to me as an XGov, and then I just went in the completely different direction. Sure, may not make a huge difference on it, but I just think if we're trying to get away from centralized governance, this is kind of like going more toward it. but it's also going away from it because the Algorand Foundation is not going to be proposing everything. So, you know, it goes toward and away.
But Ibu, you're not going to prevent people from not being lazy. Like,
of course, yeah.
Like right now, I mean, right now, like if you would make everybody vote and make everybody do their own research, how many people do you think that voted in this last governance actually researched?
You know, I'd say one thing is right now.
Yeah, you're right. You have a point.
They just watched me and Ibu and listened to us in here talk about it, and then made their decision based on what we said.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people have their own smaller communities, and through those smaller communities, they discuss amongst themselves, and maybe they have one friend who's kind of like the lead person who loves to dig into things. So it's kind of a tiered system. I am very interested in it. I'll be thinking hard of which option to choose, but I think ultimately what people are after is transparency. You know, we want to understand what proposals are being evaluated. You know, let's say we have 100 proposals that are evaluated, and the foundation is choosing, you know, transparency related to how they're evaluating them, what criteria they're using, and then which ones ultimately get selected, which ones didn't make it, and out of that batch of ones that weren't approved, how much support does the community actually have for each one of those products or ideas?
Oh yeah, that is actually a good point, right? Like, so the foundation, it's in this proposal, they're picking the proposals that get selected for, you know, like prime time voting, or like, can you flood the proposal? Can you flood the proposals by just, you know, like proposing a lot of things?
Yeah, there's no hybrid model there, right? It's either, you know, they pick it or we get this other model. And Ivo, I don't think it would be bad if people delegate it to you, but I think the concern is, what if Michael Arrington said everybody in my portfolio needs to direct all of their followers and their communities to delegate to me, and then Arrington got it, and then he influenced, you know, what votes happened or something, right?
I mean, like things like the other thing too that wouldn't make sense, and how I would build this DAO structure is that I would implement rage quitting, very similar to the Moloch DAO, where once you actually delegate to when you delegate your tokens to somebody and they vote some direction that you don't agree, you could rage quit out of it, which would pull all of your tokens out. You would not get the reward for that portion of time, but that's the rage quit piece. Like if you believe so much that I disagree with what the person I delegated to, I'm taking my tokens out and foregoing my reward. But that will then decrease the amount of votes that person did, is a good solution for that.
I think being able to reassign your votes to the individual who is making that decision.
I disagree. I think that part that goes back to the whole like original thing going about it, and there needs to be some pain in a rage quit, because if there's not, then it kind of like, so like I recommend you. Yeah, I recommend you reading, like, because Moloch DAO did a lot of research and everything on how to actually structure this, and if there's not pain in rage quitting, then it becomes way too easy to do, and it removes power from people that are trying to actually make decisions.
That actually makes sense, because like when you think about that, because then like alliances can be flipped and switched just by, you know, influence alone, depending on what that influence is, you know, in the situation. So yeah, if you do want to make a change, there has, like, and especially as like Chris said, as drastically and fast, there has to be some kind of like, you know, other end to it.
Yeah,
but
I also agree, like there should be some downside to not getting the vote or otherwise losing the vote, but I also like I also am surprised that the Algorand ecosystem chose the XDAO vote at this period of time on their second vote. It's quite soon for them to decide that the community should decide what to vote on next.
Well, that's kind of what. Okay, so I was going to say that. And sorry, Oyster. Let me just drop in real quick. I think one thing that maybe should be built into this XDAO feature, and maybe they're saving it for a future vote, is that the X governors should be the ones to, if they can propose, they should also be the ones to select, or all of them should be the committee that selects what the next voting proposal is. And right now, it seems like the ex-governors will propose, but the Algorand Foundation chooses. But hopefully over time, they do the proposing and the choosing, and the Algorand Foundation has no say except, their own algos that they could vote with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that model a lot better too. I think decentralized proposal generation is only half the story. Like curation is also an important part, right?
I mean, I think it's the most important part. But Oyster, you've been waiting. What's up?
No, now this new X governance program, though, details haven't been. I haven't seen any details published besides saying that details will be published. They just gave a high level, and you talk about delegation, but unless you know something that.
Yeah, no, I'm just getting ahead of myself. This next proposal isn't about delegation.
Yeah,
I'm reading the tea leaves. I feel like this is the direction that it's going. I mean, if you're going to have the ex-governor, like if you're building this tier system, but building a proper decentralized, a proper DAO, it takes steps.
No, that
and
makes
this
sense.
to me feels like the right step.
Yeah, I mean, a delegation mechanism does make sense, but I just wanted to, because we're talking about it, but I didn't see, when I read it, I don't remember, unless it was like published today, which I haven't looked today.
No, I'm looking at the future and talking about the future rather than talking about the near.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Oyster. I think the community will decide on the role, the power, the functions, and I guess we will have other votes to decide on the roles of those new governors. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we need to. The details haven't been. They haven't published what their actual, how it will work. Besides what they said is based on your time, your time as a governor will count as your experience. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to work out. This is like creating the when the founding fathers created the United States of America, the Constitution, and this will probably evolve over time. There's a lot we can learn from all this, from all the previous DAOs, which is great, and also just from, I think, a good model to think about is at least the way the U.S. government was initially planned. Not the way it is today, but a representative kind of government.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like the Federalist at the beginning of the U.S. history, and also like it goes against the problem that we all talked about, how big wallets can really control every decision. And now, because it's based on time, it's really people that will be more committed.
Yeah, I've always been a firm believer that.
Go ahead.
I was going to just say, I've always been a firm believer. I think NFTs represent votes better than tokens, because then you don't have to leave so much on the market as liquidity, and it kind of prevents that whale from coming over there and like right before votes, scooping up the supply and favoring the votes. This is what happened a lot on Uniswap.
Okay, Cody, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some kind of system that has, the checks and balances, right? Because in any system, there's got to be a way to, if there's a way to game it or gain power, we need a way to check and balance it. And so we'll see what.
Yeah, the community should be able to fire against fire. Like to really hit the ex-governors if they really vote like the wrong way, and but ultimately, if the community has the last word, that could be great.
Yeah, Yeah, like for example, let's say ex-governors propose, if they have, the way I read it, the ex-governors have the power to propose the next the next agenda, but if for some reason there's a majority of the community can veto it down, can shoot it, can basically, if a handful of ex-governors propose something that doesn't make sense, right? That's always, there has to be a check and balance where the community has the power to override it. If there's an overwhelming, whatever it is, like a 2/3.
I mean, people are still voting, right? Like they're still voting on the proposal. So if a proposal makes it through, but people don't like it, they can still.
Yeah, if that's the way, yeah, I mean, that's the other way. Just like on Reddit, you can upvote it. You can vote on which proposals that you want to be included in the next session.
I think the big issue here is sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, maybe there is a problem because there might be some, like, let's say I'm a central exchange. I have a huge wallet from one side and I am an ex-governor from the other side. I can probably play the system that way.
How?
Like, because I can put a proposal as an ex-governor and then make this proposal basically win and be on both sides. Like, I think, we need check and balance.
Like network then. I mean, if you're able to propose something and have enough votes to actually make it go through, by yourself, that just doesn't work that way.
I think what we're talking about ultimately is the centralization of power. Democracy, they always refer to it as the experiment of democracy. The main thing they want to accomplish here is efficiency. As far as the evaluation of the proposals and the approval of those proposals. But the risk, on the other hand, is what happens when you centralize the decision making that goes along with that. Do you have individuals who will say, oh, I've committed to be an expert governor by staking my algos for the next 10 years. This is not just going to, because on the backside, in closed rooms, you'll have this discussion and say, this is our opportunity. This is our opportunity to get a hold of the network and actually drive the direction that it goes through. So if we dedicate our resources to building some projects, and larger, the larger the group of people, the more rapidly they can take their resources, commit them in whatever sort of project they want to build, put up a proposal, and then secure resources from the foundation. So at the end of the day, it's almost like taxes in the sense that it's our transaction fees.
And one thing that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, fine.
So one thing that does concern me a little bit is like the fact that so there's definitely pros and cons to everything being public, right? But like, is there anything that stops, let's say, like a staking platform from saying, like, generating a proposal and then saying everybody votes the way we want on this proposal, we're going to give them a higher yield on all their staking to everything they stake on, all the staking pools.
That's a great example of a real world results, of the centralization of wealth and centralization of the decision-making power. So, do we trust expert governors? Who are they going to be? Are they going to be corporations? Are they going to be very wealthy people? Who is that group of people going to be? And how transparent are they going to be? How much time will there be for due diligence related to each proposal? So let's say the expert governors have selected this project. Does the community still get to have a voice in the sense of due diligence? What is this corporation? Who's involved? Who founded it? Where did they come from? And is it in the best interest of the community? Or is it just big, multi-billion-dollar corporations taking over the network?
Yes, especially if the same institution has many wallets that is has different powers, divided in different functions. That can be a bit problematic.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say for or against.
This vote is really to decide should this power be handed over to the community, or still held by the Algorand Foundation. But the next step is really how I see it as, okay, next step is now let's create the Constitution. We have to put this in writing and everyone has to agree to it. Right?
See, I like the concept of, if you are, there's certain people who are only interested in trading, and they might, they're not dedicated to one particular crypto, just like there's people who are only interested in mining. And if you're not one of those people who's only interested in trading, this gives you an opportunity to have a voice. If you're someone who's going to say, I'm going to take my algo, leave it staked for 10 years because I'm confident in the, question mark. What is it that gives you the confidence to stake for 10 years? Is it that you know that this is a good technology, and if we gain control of it, we can guide the community? Or that's a big question mark. But there are a lot of individuals who not really interested in trading, they're interested in building.
Yeah, but in your scenario, there has to be a way. If a big whale takes control, there's got to be a way for the community to what's the word? Impeach. Like get them out, because only because a whale controls, has that controls that portion, has that algo, right? But Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump comes into office and okay, we need to get him out, right? As an example. So it can't be just tied to, like I said, we need a constitution to protect, with checks and balances. For example, just like if a president commits a crime, or politician, a senator, they get impeached. They're out.
Well, right now we trust the Algorand Foundation.
Yes.
And most people are here because of, number one, the technology, and two, the degree of support that we have for the decisions made by the Algorand Foundation.
Yes.
And when it comes to accountability, we have a central body who we can hold accountable, and that is the foundation. If there were enough people who came together and said, I don't like the decisions that you're making, Algo Foundation, you need to be more transparent. Like we mentioned earlier, you need to show us the proposals ahead of time, and we want the community vote. Not just expert governors who might be able to take $3 billion, throw it in, let it sit there for 10 years. Now they've just replaced the Algorand Foundation. So what are the risks of this, and do they outweigh the benefits?
Yep.
And one of the big problem is the cartel formation. Like a few institutions could subscribe to with money wallets and to have a backdoor control of the DAO, because everything is anonymous. So it's a bit interesting.
Yeah, and one thing I've been thinking, I saw some comments about it, but should there be, in my opinion, if you're an ex-governor, right, there should be KYC. We should know, like, full transparency. Like, we know the Algorand Foundation is making these proposals. Like, if you're an ex-governor, there has to be KYC. We have to know who you are, what's your Algorand account that you're using.
You should have to take responsibility.
Yeah, it's not. It can't be that can't be run in a permissionless manner, right? An ex-governor must. If we go down this path, just like we know the Algorand Foundation, we need to know who are these ex-governors.
Right, and then there's another question that we haven't brought up yet, which is when governance derivatives are created on algo, so you can use your algo in a DeFi protocol, have governance voting rights. You don't have to choose A or B. What's going to happen at that point when it's going to be a protocol to protocol basis, an app to app basis, but I'm sure in some, the creators or the CEOs or whoever runs that app will be the ones who actually control the algo, and some others, maybe it's the users. But, you know, now there's a different financial incentive to maybe rally behind a certain app or something like that, because that app will, like someone said before, maybe give higher yields. Or it's like, okay, if we all, one of the biggest DeFi protocols on algo, like let's say Yieldly, for example, this is just for example, not saying Yieldly would do this, but let's say they were like, all right, like if we all band together and, you know, they offered a wrapped algo or governance algo derivative, we all band together and make a huge vote, we'll, like, you know, we'll try to take over the chain. And I think, Algod, you keep mentioning this, like, you know, there's groups like trying to take over Algorand, but we knew that was going to happen. Like, if it became more decentralized, of course there's going to be multiple groups thinking, hey, like if we play this right, we could become the majority voters here. That's kind of a natural thing. That's called political parties. And if this is going to be a political system, there are going to be parties, and that's kind of like what X governors is like the first step into. But hopefully it's not a two-party system, and hopefully it becomes a representative system, you know, like a senator type of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. It's exactly that. The question is, do we want a direct democracy or do we want a representative democracy? And that's the first, I think that's the first good step to ask the community.
Now, if there was slashing involved, let's say that this supermajority of expert governors make decisions that are bad for the community, and we see that they've launched a bunch of projects or products that were highly centralized. They were in the interest of big business rather than the community at whole. If they make the wrong decisions, in any one of these scenarios where they make the wrong decisions, if there was slashing, if their capital was still at risk, then I think that would influence. If the degree of transparency that the community wants isn't being upheld, then their funds should be slashed. And right now, you know, you talk about a multi-party system. Go ahead, Chris.
You can hurt something, because the thing is, like, the delegators or the people actually doing or the ex-governors, I guess what they're called, most likely will receive extra reward for being that responsibility. And you would receive the extra reward based off of the number of people delegated to you. And if there were the, you know, rage quit aspect of it, and you have the potential of losing followers for doing the wrong thing, that alone would be enough incentive to keep doing the right thing of what your people wanted you to do, without having actually like a full slash.
Well, that makes sense. You'd want to keep your constituents happy in that case.
The one thing that's kind of problematic there, though, right, is that there's either a a money-based system where every algo is a vote, or like you somehow weight in the number of wallets, right? But like if it's just the number of algos that are being delegated to you, it still gives people who have, you know, outsized financial positions, you know, an overweight control. And then if you try to somehow incorporate, you know, a system where it's like the number of wallets matters as well, then you're just encouraging people to make fake wallets.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to have civil tax. But so, Evan, what is in game theory when there is, you know, you need to actually have a equilibrium in the entire systems, and that what is wrong with giving the people that have the most to lose the most say? That to me, like, it feels like if you give the power to the people that have the littlest to lose, that actually has the potential of disrupting the equilibrium.
It makes a lot of sense. The only thing is you can game that position too, right? Where if you have the most, even though you have the most to lose, you can also slate the game so that it favors you, right? Like the example of that you know, a staking platform that offers a higher reward to people who delegate to you or to who vote on proposals that benefit you. Right, you can increase your position even further.
Remember, what we're playing an infinite game, though. So, like, say if that somebody that has more stake ends up making a decision that benefits them and nothing else, and then it ends up being less decentralized, it has the potential of actually hurting them in the long run, which would then they would end up having to sell their actual stake back to and be more decentralized, which would then make you know, hit equilibrium again. So, like, yes, temporarily they could make a bad decision because of the weight that they had, but in the long run, it has the potential to hurt them, making the decision that only benefits themselves.
True. No, but that's the problem, right? That there's the rub, which is that you can, if you have a system that has a short-term incentive that has a long-term disincentive, you basically create a game where people are incentivized to destroy themselves, right? Like that's like the current political situation, right? You don't want a situation where people are incentivized, or like, whales are incentivized to destroy the entire community.
You have three problems: insider trading, lobbyists, and pay to play. It's a threefold problem. It's affecting every political system in the entire world. Now, before we go into having multiple parties, quote unquote, is it better to take the current body that operates the foundation and achieve the desired level of transparency? Simple question: why every governance period do we vote on one thing? The foundation makes dozens of decisions in this 3-month period, and we don't get to vote on any of them. So why don't we first start with transparency from the foundation, hold one body accountable to giving us what we want before we allow that body to create a program? And look, I love the idea of being able to have long-term supporters, people who say, yeah, I'll stake my algo for 10 years and forget about it. Fine. I love the idea of being able to incentivize those people. But when we have one body that's not meeting our expectations, do we want to allow them the decision to say, oh, we want to open this up to give you 17 different parties? Why don't we just have one party and achieve the results that we want to see: the transparency, the trust, the decentralization of the decision-making process? Why don't we vote? Why do we only vote on one thing every quarter?
I mean, put yourself in the position of an algo whale, and you don't have any say over proposals. I think that's pretty unfair, right? Because you're taking a huge stake. You're actually upholding part of the network, right? Just by holding your stake. And then by committing your stake to governance, you're actively participating in the governance of the protocol. So I don't think it's unfair for those people to be incentivized to do so, because it's kind of what you need. But I don't think there's any kind of perfect solution to that issue besides price. It's like, if the price skyrockets, like in the short term, then yeah, you're gonna have like big whale governors drop out and cash out. There's nothing you can do to prevent that.
Going back to the delegation item, like there's going to be people that are very well educated, because I think it's information asymmetry type thing. Like sometimes the people that are not necessarily the biggest whales, they have a lot of information. Like maybe you're very well educated in, this proposal, and you don't have a big bag of algo, but people will delegate to you. And I feel like that element should be taken into account as well. So I think that's like a +1 for the idea of delegation for your tokens.
But right now everyone has to vote. Everyone has their delegates not delegates, but everyone has their group of advisors. A lot of them are the people who are here now. Why do we need to appoint them the power rather than allowing the individual to go to their trusted advisors, get the opinion, and make their vote? What's the difference?
Because not everybody has the time to do that, and they're not going to go in and research every topic or listen to, as you're saying, their trusted advisor. They're just going to delegate it and trust that they are going to be responsible enough to do that research for them. They're going to trust the person more than vote. If you're proposing more proposals per quarter, you expect people to keep up with the day-to-day. I think that's an unreasonable expectation. That's not realistic. Like, we could talk about fantasy and all that stuff, but that's not how the real world works. Like, majority of people that vote in elections, they don't know shit. They vote blue and red. Very simple. So I think we need to keep it grounded in the real world when we have these conversations.
There were thousands of algos staked for governance, and they didn't vote this last round, which is surprising to me. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But I think that the question of delegates and the voting avoids the real power play, and the power play really is who gets to determine the questions. And I agree. Why do we only get one set of questions per quarter? I don't think that's right. We should come up with something that, some other way of, who gets to ask the questions, because that's really where the power is.
There's also if you have multiple proposals, they could be the interplay between proposals becomes complicated too, right? You can have proposals where there's like synergy or redundancy or even like, destructive interference between them. Like and that might be really complicated and hard for anybody to understand how like 3 or 4 proposals, if they all get ratified all at once, they'll all have it just becomes a much harder problem, right? Of like
some kind of compound effect or something.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about NFT marketplaces, if we're talking about decentralized exchanges, and the subject of how many do we need, how many is healthy for the economy, will the competition further the technology? As a foundation, how many do we support? I say, look, we want to begin launching decentralized exchanges as a foundation. We want to provide funding for 5 groups, and then it's at the discretion of those 5 applicants who are accepted to compete to provide the best technology, so they can get that funding. And the problem here is now, if you let the big multi-billion-dollar stakeholders make those decisions, then they're also going to be the ones who are founding the organizations. So it quickly becomes a corporate-owned, would we ever have seen Rand Gallery in that model? They wouldn't have received the founding. It would have been a private company says, okay, we're going to launch NFT marketplaces. This is the next proposal. Let's dedicate $2 million, build out an MVP very rapidly.
So I think that I'll go D. I would just counter on that. I don't know if we're in agreement on this, but like, are you trying to tell me that like delegating responsibility to a more informed particular individual, or even like you could technically maybe delegate to a wallet that would be a DAO? So let's take it to another level. So all of a sudden you have a bunch of individuals, and then you have a wallet that's going to be voting on behalf of those individuals. But that particular wallet is a multi-sig, and that's a DAO of experts that are lower in quantity of algo held individually, but they happen to be experts and trusted individuals that form this DAO. And then that's another layer of where we could fight against your saying, oh, there's going to be corporations, they're going to be able to, put in whatever proposal they want and vote it through, etc. But this is maybe a way of countering it. So I think there's a lot of layers to this that we could get into.
No, it's very true. It's very true. Having those trusted advisors, that's what leads society forward.
So,
but until we solve for those 3, I just wanted to say, until we solve for those 3 problems of insider trading, pay to play, and lobbyists, because they all go together. Lobbyists, pay to play, insider trading, solve those first.
You could pay the DAO committee, that multi-sig DAO committee, $1 million a year, so they won't be open to influence. Somebody said that the other day about elected officials as well. I mean, we could take it again to another level if you want to. It just all depends on how much value is on chain and if it's worth it for people to like manipulate things like that. And I think early on we're going to have to be very vigilant, because it's very easy to influence right now, but later it's going to be harder.
Hey, Jeff, do you mind if I jump in for a second, please?
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that attracted me to Algorand in the first place, and I think one of its great selling points, is that it solves the oligarch problem, right? By having a random consensus mechanism, you don't have oligarchs like you do on other L1s. So by having these preferred governors who are allowed to advance proposals that they see fit, sort of works against that ethos. The one algo, one vote, participate in governance as it happens, along with a website where token holders can make their own proposals, and we can informally upvote or downvote proposals, have like a top 15, and then the top 5 goes into like the next governance period. I think that's a more elegant solution that is in alignment with the ethos of the project. Right? By having these specialized governors, we're just creating oligarchs like by another name.
I think going back to the point I touched on is the idea of like multi-sigs and DAOs. It's like in reality, I feel like that's I agree with you about the ethos of the project and how one vote, one algo is elegant. But I think that we have to be like realistic, is that the whales are going to dominate if we don't have a counter proposal to allow for individuals to group together and vote in a block in some mannerism. Like I think that's how it's going to
end up. But then you can just have an influence campaign, right? You just say like, hey, this is my idea. I'm really, really for this idea, and this is why we should upvote it on our little upvote portal. and so that it will come up for vote on governance. Right? We don't need preferred members or like you know what I'm talking about. Like we don't need XGov. We can just have an informal portal on a website where if you're a token holder, you can make a proposal, then other token holders can look at that proposal and be like, this is worthy of voting on in the next governance period.
This is broken. And Cardano has actually proven that this is broken because it's exactly what they do. And the only things that actually get funding from their Catalyst program are like flashy programs that people don't understand, actually, that don't do anything.
I think that in reality, the average voter, let's just sadly say they're not that intelligent. Like that's reality. Like they're not paying attention. They're not aware of what's going on.
Yeah, that's yeah. I agree with that.
So let's stick to that. If you want to get into that, you know, it's like every person that votes, like if you're gonna vote, how much effort are you gonna put in if you have one algo to really like study this stuff? Like
as much effort as you think that one algo is worth to you.
Right,
it's a real debate.
Scale, yeah, I mean, on the scale of things, the majority of people are not going to put much effort. You know,
it's a real debate.
Once again, this is actually the Cardano has proven this now several times over that the projects that do get it are not the right projects.
How satisfied are we with the decisions that the foundation has made in the past year?
Yeah, but look at the example of people are voting with their algos on all these scam projects. I mean, that goes to the
right.
Yeah. There has to be a degree of qualification to guide the ecosystem.
Plato never trusted the opinion of the crowd, and the question of specialization and having competent people to examine projects, etc. Is probably important, but we don't want to fall also into a kind of technocratic government kind of.
Yeah, so I understand the tendency or propensity to create a system where you can vote in a block with someone whose opinions align with yours. I think that's fine. That's cool. Right now, you can vote with the foundation or you can vote independently. We can have all kinds of factions, and that's okay. But I just don't think we should systematize having preferred member voters and non-preferred member voters. That's just my point.
And I totally agree. I mean, there needs to be checks and balances. So there's got to be a way to check in case again, like the ex-governors get infiltrated, or there's they sell out, right? They get bribed or whatever. You get Joe Biden coming in and buying up Algo, and he's destroying the ecosystem. You know, we need to get him out. So we need checks and balances.
I mean, getting people out is as easy as instantly removing your delegation to them. Now they lose. So rather than like they have, you know, like the current system right now is like you either have the power or you don't have the power. But if you have the ability to, because of blockchain, number one, transparently see all of the decisions that they're doing, and number two, being able to actually pull the power whenever you want. I mean, that has the power to bring people out without having to do any type of process.
Yeah, but the problem there is Joe Biden's friends. I mean, the system can be gamed, right? The whales they'll just give them they'll delegate all their algo to Joe Biden.
Keep in mind the word delegate doesn't appear a single time in the current documentation for the XGov proposal.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're talking about the future.
There is no delegation. I mean, the details haven't been. Chris is talking about, you know, his proposed delegation model.
I mean, if we're talking, like you mentioned, Chris, we are talking about the future, and the future is not known at this point. Voting is already open, but we haven't been provided with the document that they say we're going to be provided with. You know, just for reference here, you know, I'm here today to share some information about network monitoring software. And you can see at the top that I pinned, well, I didn't mean to change.
Yeah, go for it, please.
But what I did was I shared some information about the features, and I shared some information about the roadmap. And if I came here and I said, well, we are the expert governors. Everyone who's a speaker gets to be an expert governor. There is no delegation because that's not mentioned once in the proposal. So all of the speakers are the expert governors. They're going to vote on whether we give a grant to AlgoD Monitor. That wouldn't be fair to everyone. That effectively, if the speakers are the ones making the decision, then the listeners don't matter. So I think that's important to consider. Now, I do believe that the concept you mentioned, you want to have intelligent people making the decisions, but wealth is not necessarily a measure of intelligence, and educational credentials
that's
are not.
That's why anybody can be a delegate, so that wealthy people can actually delegate to people that spend the
But
time.
it doesn't say delegate. Delegate is not mentioned once in that proposal.
A little
If
point of
we're talking about
clarification.
the proposal, it's as simple as there's a second tier. Like if we're all we're talking about right now, it's pretty boring because this is all it means is that other people have the ability to make proposals outside of the foundation. That's why I'm not talking about this, because this is a big nothing burger. Obviously, we want people to be able to make proposals other than the foundation. Why is that? Like that's not even a I don't understand why that wouldn't be okay.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the choice that we have in this next governance period is not exactly the choice that is probably best for decentralization, because it's either either way, the community doesn't get the chance to propose votes. So it's really just more performative, and maybe in the future we will be able to propose votes. And kind of going back to what Oyster was saying before about like a constitution. Here's the thing: if ex-governors have to KYC themselves and dox themselves, now you could get a situation where they all group together and they say, all right, we have a huge amount of votes. They make a private group chat and they say, well, let's just all vote on this one thing, and like use our newfound power to sway the system and make a play for it ourselves. On the other hand, if you don't have if you have anonymity for these people, well, you could say that maybe people aren't going to be willing to delegate their algo to someone who's anonymous. That's probably true, but maybe not for everyone, because there are a lot of like anonymous profile pictures on crypto Twitter that hold a lot of influential power.
Yeah, but
yeah, go ahead.
I want to say, well, anonymous or not, the whales know each other. The big whales all know each other offline. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that constitution idea is cool, but I think the real question is we should be able to propose and not be still under the influence of the Algo Foundation. It's one thing to vote, but it's another thing to decide what we're voting on, and that's really like it's like the primaries in a general election, presidential election. Like if it went straight to just these are the two people you have, and we didn't get primaries, it would be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, we need to create this constitution, because even though there's these representatives, this expert panel that they call, the people need to be able. I mean, everyone needs the ability to propose ideas. There has to be a process, right? We don't know what this process is. This vote is not about the process. It's just whether or not the community can propose, and they can make proposals versus the Algorand Foundation. And we'll see. They're going to publish more information about this, how they envision this expert panel of governors to work, because the information that's been released so far is very, it's not much. It sounds like it's going to be based on time. I'm not really. I don't get. I get it and I don't get it. I get the rationale behind it, but I don't see real value, that much value in that. I mean, we need a much more thought out constitution that ensures that there's checks. Again, I keep saying that we need to make sure there's the proper checks and balances in the system.
But I think to your point, I think they are trying to make us right with them, the new constitution,
Yes. Oh,
because
absolutely. I mean, we can't accept. We need to ratify the Constitution. The community needs to ratify the Constitution.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
and that's the first question.
yeah.
That's the first question. Do we want represented or do we want to be a direct democracy? Because with blockchain, we can literally become a direct democracy. That's the option B is like it's very idealistic, but I kind of like it too. It's can we all, as Prithvi was saying, can we all come up from proposals from any of us and go like to follow this proposal and to support it? Or do we need experts and people who are, as Chris said, committing a lot of algos for a long period of time that have skin in the game? It's a very interesting question and debate. That's why also I think they made it like for 1 month, and I'm sure next Sunday we will talk about it again. It's fascinating. It's very interesting.
I mean, I like the delegation model that Chris brought up because, for example, anybody can make a proposal. And if your proposal is something that the community, you get buy-in from the community, that means you're going to get you're going to win over delegate votes, right? So it's a matter of you have an idea, you sell it to the community, you get buy-in, get people on board, and people will shift their votes to your platform, to your platform.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's like, should ex-governors be like a long-term position, or maybe it should be something where there is like a decentralized forum, like in a Reddit type style, where people just propose, and then throughout one period, whatever proposals end up as the most popular by some time frame before the next period, whoever proposed that is now an ex-governor. So it's not like, so every time new votes want to be proposed or new topics want to be discussed, everything resets, and whoever is the most relevant to that topic or propose that topic can become a leader in that space. And because like I said before, Chris, I just think people get lazy, and if they commit algo to one person and then walk away for a while, that person can probably maintain that for a long time because the person who delegated probably just won't really care. And a lot of people just don't put that much effort into it.
Yeah. I mean, I like the delegation model. Like, for example, Chris here. I think a lot of people here would delegate. I would delegate my votes to I would delegate. I trust Chris, right? Chris, until someday, where he starts, maybe he gets power and power corrupts him at some point. But I don't think
we start giving all the grants to Reach.
Right, but this is. I think anybody should be able to become a representative.
But you won't know in that model. He can abstain. Who's a bad actor until after the fact. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you guys. What I was saying was you won't know who's a bad actor until after the fact. So yes, while theoretically you can track someone's decision making and either feel ideologically aligned or not aligned, all it takes is one vote to essentially gamify the voting system.
Right, but to become if you want to become a representative, I'm not going to, for example, I wouldn't some guy comes out of the blue and he has to earn the trust of the community, prove that person can be trusted, has to be KYC background, prove that they can be trusted beyond any reasonable doubt. I mean, I won't delegate personally. I mean, I need to know the person, know their platform, know their background, as much as I can before delegating, delegating to that person. Right? I need to know that person.
But again, the delegation concept was not in the document.
No, it's not. I mean, right. This is like Chris brought this up as this is like one of the mechanisms that seems to be
the most obvious.
that works well in other.
But Silvio Micali talked a lot against delegation. You know, when he compares the protocols themselves, he criticized a lot the delegation system because as many delegates you have, you can always corrupt them. And that's a fatal flaw, in my opinion, in the delegation system. So that's why I think they're trying to go to another way, like the time, the long period of locked algos. That's a real commitment. And they don't say that there is a limited number of ex-governors. Maybe there will be 20,000 ex-governors. I don't know.
Well, maybe as part of the governor's period, as to be that representative ex-governor, you also need to stake for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what they said.
Right now we're just brainstorming. Everyone here is brainstorming. I mean, we don't. This is all. This is all new. This is a whole new topic. People haven't really thought about this, right? They're thinking about trading and thinking about NFTs, and now we're talking about governance.
My main concern is if we get people like Chris as an ex-governor, he's going to be bribing people with Reach Thank You tokens.
Got him.
I want some Reach Thank You tokens.
That's very true. It's very true.
Do you want the current Reach Thank You token, or do you want the Reach Thank You token 2.0, like the smart Reach Thank You tokens?
Yeah, I want the one with utility.
Yeah.
It's worth more.
I want to buy some. Where is the market?
You guys make fun of these Reach Thank You tokens, but as soon as we actually launch both of our PFP sets, you're going to be able to turn those in for full NFTs.
Any rugs in there?
There are 0 rugs. There's a full set of EVs and a full set of the animated GIFs, which I haven't seen actually done yet, that are procedurally generated GIFs that are coming.
Say, on that subject, Chris, can you share out the link for people to submit their artwork?
For what?
People. I know you had the one program going. Now, was that exclusive for the T-shirts? The T-shirt.
Oh yeah, so T-shirts is also going on. Stefania is actually running that. I wanted to be making an announcement sooner, but she wants to actually take the time to do it right. Whatever, I guess. So what that is that NFT creators have the ability to collab with one of the Reach projects, and we'll do an image, or the artist will do a derivative of the image. We will actually make that a one-of-one part of the actual T-shirt series. We'll auction it off. 100% of whatever the auction goes for goes back to the artist. And what we do is we're going to actually put that design and put it on a T-shirt, and it'll be a limited edition. Only 100 be able to be bought, and we'll just keep doing that like week after week. And we've got a bunch of people actually already lined up, and they're pretty awesome. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
So we can fractionalize ownership of the T-shirts, right? Since there's only 100.
I mean, so like you're going to be buying a T-shirt and walk around with it. We also are going to be giving out individual NFTs for each person that buys the T-shirt as well.
So one thing I was thinking about just now about the governance and the ex-gov, it would be interesting to me if the ex-governors actually only had veto power. So the community can make proposals and the ex-governors can veto. And then if you notice that your guy that you've given your voting power to is vetoing the things that you want pushed through, you can then switch to somebody else. Yeah, so that's just a thought. I'm going to go back on mute.
It does give another layer of decision-making power. In the United States, we have the Electoral College who's given that power. And their goal is to avoid tyranny affecting the majority of the people in our country here in the United States. So
right. So rather than them having the power to make proposals and only those proposals get advanced, they can only veto proposals from the community. So if they want, they can make a community proposal. And then if the community agrees with that proposal, it can get put into the next governance. But yeah, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. All right, cool.
So Chris can tell us, he's got a lot of knowledge related to what's going on with that mechanism. It sounds similar to what's in play in Cardano.
Yeah. So I don't like.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna just give one comment. So I heard that someone said that we don't have that much experience with these structures. Actually, there has been some other, crypto projects with a lot of experience. I named Dash because it had, it has a long history of governance. To my experience, actually, this kind of decentralized governance is kind of disaster. Even people think that it's democracy or whatever. It's not gonna work because first, there are too many ideas, and most people just have ideas and no real commitment for very hard work. And then these ideas or proposals are, granular and unrelated, not under one strategic plan. Even if you have two good people in one room and they have good ideas, their strategies may not work together. The idea that we can have one critical product such as blockchain, as important as blockchain, as difficult as blockchain, difficult product to maintain over a long time, and improve it with kind of decentralized governance, it's just not real ideas. The best structure that we have, and they don't work perfectly in terms of doing work, is for companies. Right, that's the best structure that we have, and many of them, they don't work well. There are a few of them, and they require the best talented people, and then they have a board, and then they have a CEO or one or two CEOs that they are the single entities that define most of the things. So for me, it will be very concerning if we just try to move further and further for decentralized governance. I think the limited version is having a few people as representative governance, but still it will be very challenging, particularly if the algorithm incorporation is not directly there in terms of guaranteeing the product and maintenance and everything. And if they are there at that level, they should own a big stake. And there is a question how they're gonna keep their incentives aligned with Algorand Foundation if there are other people as well, other larger stakeholders. So please don't just start thinking about this democracy or all these kind of tasks that they are not going to work and just waste time for a few years. And go look at other projects. They had smart people, many smart people. They tried to do the good thing. They wanted to achieve, best things, but it ended up in a disaster because this is not the structure that's going to work.
Okay, can you tell us more about a structure that you like?
I'm not sure which structure is the best. As I said, the best one that I know are companies. You can look at Google, Facebook, and they have a lot of problems as well, right? At many levels, even at the product level, you see breakages in Google and Facebook, products as well. So, but they execute, they are able to execute and move forward. For the blockchain, either you want something that doesn't change, like Bitcoin, and then it's there and that's there, and you don't need to execute and improve, or you have a product that you want to execute and improve, and it's as complex as Algorand because for Bitcoin, the data size increases, but not that much. But for Algorand, there are many more challenges, and they're adding features for getting more customers. So I don't know any better structure than companies that we have, and that's not perfect. We can keep something close to that. And I'm happy that there is Algorand Corporation. None of the, many other chains, they have this structure, but there is no clarity how Algorand Incorporation is related or work together with Algorand Foundation. I can see a structure that, we have, governance people, for example, 10 people are selected from the community, and then they work together with Algorand Incorporation and the community to put forward some proposals. But this is a very delicate work, and how it is done needs to be figured out. And I think one thing that we can talk today, or as a follow-up, is how Algorand Foundation is going to perform in the future, and what's the so, for example, we heard that the CEO is gone now. Who decided about who will be the CEO, and who decided that is going to be, he won't be the CEO anymore?
Right, that's a great question. For anyone who isn't aware, it seems like Sean Lee, the current CEO of the Algorand Foundation, will be leaving maybe by the end of the month. Question is, who's going to replace him? Will he be replaced, or will he be replaced by a committee, something more decentralized? Seeing as the Algorand Foundation, to clarify, my understanding is that the Algorand Inc. is based in Boston. They handle technology mostly, and the foundation is based in Singapore. They handle economics and governance. Yeah, the question is, how do these entities intend to work together or become less connected over time? How are they going to handle?
Okay, so the question is, who is?
Well? Go ahead.
So sorry. So the question is, who is going to maintain the product as the Algorand network? You know, Algorand Foundation doesn't have the capacity to do that, right? And so far, I think they paid Algorand Incorporation in terms of, you know, research or whatever. So it's you know, maintaining this product as a network, right, and making sure that it's reliable, and then maintaining all this, you know, data and updates and everything. Algorand Foundation doesn't just have the capacity and people to do that, and all the innovation comes from the Algorand Incorporation, right? So there should be actually a, you know, very well defined and close connection between these two entities, right? Otherwise, it's very hard to see. Sorry.
I think they actually do work very closely together. I mean, at Decipher, it's
so now it's easy because, you know, the incentives are aligned. They want to, you know, get algo there. But let's in 3, 4, 5 years, right? Then if there are differences, you know, let's say that on both sides there are people that disagree on topics, right? And if disagreement increases, so how the incentives of Algorand Incorporation will remain, you know, with the benefit of Algorand network in terms of growth and expansion and success, you know, and they can work in the long term. Right now, it's a small project, and then everyone on both sides benefits from increasing the algo price. So it's easy right now. It's the question is, what happens in the future?
I think it's another important consideration. I mean, I've kind of mentioned multiple times that we want to hold the foundation accountable. We want them to be more transparent before we expand to a larger group of governors who have that control. So if we evaluate the decisions that they've made in the past, you know, we get an idea of what decisions they're going to make in the future and having that influence. So if you look at, for example, you know, we're taking Algo Foundation is committing to funding this partnership with Envision Racing. You know, a lot of people think, oh, this is great. Algorand's on a race car, that's cool. You know, then we have the next partnership. We have this deal with the Drone Racing League. You know, people can turn on NBC and then they see the Algorand logo. They think, oh, this is cool. So that's promotion, you know, and we don't have a report that says, oh, we're going to spend this much on promotion. We're spending this much on development. If you look at the grant that they have with Headline made Pipeline UI. They delivered tools that make us possible for us to build solutions and for everyday people to build those solutions on Algorand. So if we want things like post-quantum security, if we want things like development frameworks and libraries like Pipeline, that's where I think the majority of people would like the money to go, as opposed to let's start trending by getting on NBC Drone Racing League.
Yeah, I can agree with that 100%.
That's also tough though, right? Because if there's a huge adoption, right, then there's more money to fund things like post-quantum research, which is, you know, I imagine expensive, at least at some scale.
Yeah, the other point that I have, it's very simplistic to think that you have money and you can get stuff done. So the fact that thinking that Algorand Foundation can do stuff by money, it's very simplistic. That's not going to happen. When you get to actual work and executing difficult tasks, the capability is what's important, and that's why companies are important. So unless, you know, you say that, okay, Algorand is going to get to some state in terms of network and technology and stay there, and then there will be small changes, which I cannot imagine given how Algorand works. Otherwise, you need to have capability of actually getting hard tasks done. And that's a very difficult thing to have. And money is it's the easy part, and it doesn't matter. Because if the product is useful, money will come. But who can do that is important. And if you collect 1 million people, if you gather 1 million people, they may not be able to do even a single thing. The thing is that you need to have the right team and structure to be able to do that.
I agree with you, but also like coming from a research background, like getting like money is not the like publish or perish. Like that whole model is because money is hard to get for researchers. Like and quote post quantum research is complicated and time expensive. And if you want the experts to like the best people in the world to work on that, there has to be funding for it.
Yeah, research is not sufficient for product. Research is just, you have a specific topic, you work on it, you have a paper or some result. That's a small group, and it's very different from having a product, maintaining it, and growing it.
So the Algorand Centers of Excellence, with partnerships with the universities,
well,
that
I'm glad
seems
you
like
brought
a great
that up.
investment. I think that is probably first and foremost the best thing that the foundation could do. I think there's more substantial results coming from that than there ever will be from a partnership with Drone Racing League. And it's not that I want to centralize ownership of Algorand among the universities, but that's where it came from. It came from Silvio, it came from MIT.
When you talk about adoption, doing it from the ground level, like the seed level, like teaching these people how to use Algorand before, while they're still learning is going to be the biggest thing. And probably one of the most commendable thing I could say about the foundation. Because, if we can get these young people learning it now, by the time, in 10 years, there's no telling what these guys can develop, think about, and build. Because the more minds we get on it, the more powerful we're going to be.
And do we want to spend those transaction fees putting our name on a race car, or do we want to focus on education, which is the foundation of society?
I think the money exists to do both.
Definitely both.
Go ahead.
Keep in mind, we have millions of transactions per day at this point. So, even though you can say the money's not important, the money is there.
No, that's what I'm saying. The money exists to do both. I think we can pursue both things.
Yes, I can say that too. You have to have some level of marketing. You got to let people know we're out there. Because, getting these developers and everything is important, but getting that those people that just go out there and talk about it, maybe they don't so much need to be a developer. But, they could be just someone regular, someone that just has a different background in a different area. It could be a lawyer or something. Yeah, it could be a lawyer, it could be anything. As long, the more minds we get on this, the better. And whatever route we have to take to get this, like I said, maybe a possible lawyer to get involved in the crypto, maybe start helping the community from a legal aspect so we can start asking for better crypto laws and stuff like that. Whatever we got to do to reach out to people, as frivolous it is like a drone racing league, it's still reaching people. And you have to have some level of marketing to reach different aspects and different groups of people.
Right. And I think it's commendable to expect or put the faith in the community to market the product, right? But then you're kind of expecting okay, the community will market this and then therefore price will go up and the community will be happy. But that's not always a guarantee. It's very hard to guarantee that. So if there, where's the budget for, empowering, everybody in this group chat right now and who's been doing this for the past 5 months, to expand our operation and, bring this to the next level, for example. Things like that. If they really want this to be a community-driven marketing push, why spend $100 million on Drone Racing League when you could spend $10 million on community?
Yeah, they can send me 10 million algos. I wouldn't say no.
Right?
You can be an expert governor.
Where's that proposal?
Is a win-win. They'll also be able to showcase because they're also building on Algorand. Their plans is also to build some kind of gaming metaverse on Algorand. So that Drone Racing League is definitely it's a partnership, win-win.
We're all here right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were all here right now because Algorand had the best technology and being, yes, multi-chain world. Go ahead, talk about multi-chain world all you want, but I'm here because we have the best technology, and I think that's why we're all here.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Algo, just on one point, like Algoana is doing a $75,000 cross-chain marketing campaign in the next week or two. So, on Ibu's point, there are people taking it in their own hands and are going to be making moves sooner than later. You can't depend on anybody, Inc. or Foundation to do things. Like, if you guys want to help Algo, you should do it yourselves as well, and that's what Algoana is doing and other projects, Akita as well.
Right.
I mean,
that's
that's 100.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that's 100% because community outreach, word of mouth is the most powerful way of advertising to this day. Because if I can tell you how passionate I am about it, it's going to beat any drone racing league, any commercial, or anything like that. Because I am enthusiastic about it. But like I said, there's different aspects. Because I mean, when you think of different sides of marketing, you look at something like McDonald's, or you hear ba da da ba ba, like you think about it, all right. And that's just something that I think Algorand is just trying to do with this drone racing league. It's just have a foot place for their name. Like, even though you may not know what it is, it's kind of like that JG Wentworth commercial. Like, half the people don't know what the hell JG Wentworth is, but they just know that funny dumbass commercial of people screaming about they want their money.
So we need a jingle. We need a jingle to go viral.
Algorand needs a catchy jingle.
And to be clear, I'm actually bullish on Drone Racing League. And I made a video about this, but I see Drone Racing League and I see a lot of parallels between the esports scene from 5-10 years ago. And everyone was, shitting on esports back then and saying it was a joke. And look where it is now. It's one of the most popular and profitable and consistently growing scenes in entertainment. So I definitely think that Drone Racing League has a huge upward growth ahead of them. But here's the thing, right? It's like, if we as the community are going to be doing that grassroots on the ground, in the streets, kind of just spreading the gospel and spreading the word because we like the technology, it's up to the foundation and the Inc. to make those big announcements with governments and Fortune 100 companies and et cetera, because we can't do that. So everyone has their role to play. And I feel like, what do you guys think of that? It's like, I think 2022, we should hear some big announcements. If this is really that revolutionary technology that can change the world, where are the partnerships,
I think that brings the question of when is it that you have a First Nation state that becomes an expert governor?
Exactly. What's to say the Marshall Islands won't be one of the first ex-governors, or Colombia, or any of the places that any of the leaders that Silvio met with in the past 2 months, Those people could be accumulating and say, hey, I want to be an ex-governor and we're going to represent our country on this chain. But again, we kind of need those announcements. Those things will go a lot further than other marketing. And, in the meantime, the community carries, and we really carry.
I still think that Silvio should be the biggest expert governor, perhaps. He seems to be really pushing everything forward more than anyone else. I wish we heard a little bit more from him directly.
Agreed.
He has done some great interviews, though.
Like Charles Hopkins, we would be booming then.
But we've got Sophia the robot.
Right, and there's a balance, because I'm sure it's very difficult, even if, we've heard a lot of rumors of big partnerships in the work with governments and large companies and payments structures and et cetera. Yeah, it's probably really difficult to even disclose any of the information, but it kind of seemed like 2021 was the year of soon trademark for those big announcements. And it's okay, here's the rumor, and then we get a winky face on Twitter from somebody who works at Algorand, and we all kind of lose our minds. And it's all right, but let's let's kind of move on from the winky faces and let's start to get some news out, or maybe just confirmation that things are in the works, because it's really we're all kind of, as communities, we're all just we're pulling the weight.
I'm 100% with you, but my issue is, Chris and Evan, we've spoken about this, is the points of centralization, the indexers, Algo Explorer, these weaknesses, and having a single DEX. I think we're not quite ready for prime time, but we're so close. I feel as a community, just be a little bit more patient. let these things get flushed out. Let's fix up the weak points, have a solid base, and we're ready to like go to the moon, as you would say.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
can't
I
agree with
totally
that
agree with
more.
that.
One thing I'd kind of like to do here, Bilal, if that's okay with you, Headline has been making a big move on infrastructure, and they've been developing the DAO Tools platform. That's something that we're using, AlgoD monitoring software. That's something that we use to set up our first vote here. So if you guys would like to come up and speak a little bit about the work that you're doing, that would be cool.
Yeah, please tell us more about it. Very glad to have you here to teach us more about how this new model will work.
What we're doing for infrastructure is providing enterprise-grade monitoring solutions. In real-world enterprise solutions, you have a system that goes down, it goes offline. Headline came up. That's great.
What's going on, guys?
I'll let you guys take the floor.
All right, yeah, no problem. So I'm actually on the road. I've been traveling for the last month. This is Aaron, by the way, at Headline. And for the last week or so, we've been finishing up the smart contracts for, it's called DAO Deposit. And essentially what it is it's going to allow for really efficient capital formation for DAOs. So it's basically that initial investment period. And we have a really innovative solution that we've created because of the latest TL5 inter-transaction ability that you can do. So we're finishing up the smart contracts the next like 2 days, and then we're going to be getting it audited along with AlgoVote and our finished pipeline SDK, which now has essentially a full suite of interaction with both the smart contract side of the transactions and everything else too.
So for me, that was exciting because it provided, AlgoVote specifically provided the ability for me to start developing a community around this open source software that we're making for monitoring, and do it without very significant investment. I was able to very rapidly go in, mint the voting token. I mean, it took a matter of minutes. Now you can mint directly right on the platform. In our case, I minted the token using an offline node, transferred the signed transaction to a part node, and sent it on the network. But the capability of AlgoVote is what made it possible for me to deploy the smart contract for voting with very little investment or effort.
It's excellent that you're having such a positive experience with it already. So as you know, we're doing a grants program for DAOs. We have 48 hours left for the initial application period. And we're going to be selecting essentially a group of DAOs for a pilot program where they'll have the opportunity to submit feedback and also PRs to the code base, because we really want this to be a community driven project, AlgoVote specifically. So the feedback we're going to get, and then the improvements we're going to do along with getting it fully audited. And we wanted to be able to work with a range of different voting structures, right? So right now there's, you can do your basic standard permission or permissionless voting. But there's a lot of innovative things you can do with tokens that already, let's say, for example, you have a token like, let's see, Akita Inu, for example, right? And they want to use the token that they already have for voting. There's different innovative things you can do with that we're going to be looking to add additional deployable voting contracts for as well. So, the feedback we're going to be getting from DAOs in this initial pilot period is what other kinds of voting smart contracts we can integrate into the platform. And it's really because of our pipeline SDK that allows this possible, because with it, you can actually deploy the smart contracts directly from the front end of your website. And we were able to, in a totally different direction, we were able to kind of use that same philosophy towards what we've been doing with Reach on the front end too. So we created a boilerplate for Reach where now you can actually deploy a couple different demo Reach smart contracts directly on the front end of a website. And what that allows people to be able to do is you can kind of get to see all the different mechanisms firing, and then you can kind of take it apart and kind of like learn from something that's already functional. Something that's going to be, you know, really innovative once we start promoting that as well.
Could you explain a little bit about the permission or permissionless voting? I didn't quite grasp that part.
Yeah, definitely. So permission voting is where you have to hold the token in order to cast the vote, right? So like, let's say, for example, Algorithm Monitor, they are going to mint a voting token, and then each member of the DAO is going to essentially get that voting token, and then they can send it back to the initial minting address when they cast their vote, right? So that's permission, because the people that hold the token are the only people that are allowed to vote. Permissionless voting would be where anybody on the entire blockchain can cast a vote. So that would be like a ecosystem-wide voting you can do as well. Now, of course, you can also like make it so, like, let's say you already have a token and you don't want to have to transfer that token back to the minting address. You can like set it so it's like 0.0001 of a token, right? But what you can do with more advanced smart contracts too is you can actually have it so you can vote proportional to the amount of a token within your wallet. And this is something that's really appealing to DAOs, where their governance token is also a like a means of value for their DAO, right? As opposed to just something that is its only real utility is during the governance period, right? So like if you have a token that does governance and also has utility for different parts of your platform, you have more value there. So as we continue to expand the platform, we want to add additional functionality for more complex things like that as well. But that's still part of the permission voting type of voting contract you can do.
Yeah, that's very helpful explanation. You know, for our use case, we wanted to do permission voting. We had a discussion earlier about expert governors. So I am the expert governor, per se, for the AlgoD Monitor software. And before just putting the vote out there and allowing, our first vote is whether participation nodes should be $250 or it should be $350, including a $100 contribution to the treasury. And use of that treasury would be voted on in the future using AlgoVote for any decisions that we make. And as the expert governor, I wanted the opportunity to influence my constituents because I feel, of course, that if we make the $100 contribution to the treasury, we're investing in the future of success, the future success of this open source software for infrastructure monitoring. So
Aaron,
permission.
I was just going to say, I was just going to ask where, if anybody needs to hear this, where is the link for the DAO submission? I think you said you got like 48 hours or something like that. If anybody's interested, where would they find that?
I'll pull it up and pin it to the top.
Booyah.
I think that's powerful, and I think this is actually a great example of where the assets of the foundation were well invested, because Pipeline. And you know, just another subject briefly. I very much appreciate the concept that AlgoVote is going to be decentralized and managed just on a code basis. You know, you mentioned anyone can go in and put a pull request. That's how open source software is supposed to work. That's the same thing you can do with AlgoD Monitor. And you know, just as all open source software organizations, we are very excited to have new members of our community. You know, and for us, being able to conduct this vote, it's really helped us gain traction in the community. So I'm glad that the foundation did what they did in funding for Pipeline UI, and really excited to keep hearing more good news.
I agree. Somebody said earlier something about innovation. I was just going to say, Aaron, that I think that the foundation is responsible for a lot of the innovation that happens indirectly by funding programs like that in long term. their work with the university stuff. So I agree.
And that really is interesting because it goes back to what you guys were saying right before I jumped on about whose responsibility it is to kind of like drive adoption, marketing, making the advancements both on the technical side and, in terms of adoption. And our philosophy is really, it's incumbent upon us to try to, do our part to both drive adoption and make it easier for people to use the technology. Because we really do believe that Algorand is going to become, the dominant blockchain. The technology is outstanding, right? So the hurdle is to drive that adoption and to help people realize all of the things that you can build. So with Pipeline UI, for example, our entire approach is how can we make it as simple as possible for people to be able to start appreciating all of the impressive technology that Algorand gives them access to.
The tools to build and deploy, one-click deployment. It's really phenomenal. So a little bit more on what we're working on right now. We have the initial vote up. It's related to the cost of the participation nodes. The main goal is to, number one, build a community of participation node operators, and two, leverage that community into kind of a springboard, to help people who have that technological inclination and help them work together to push further into the development space. So by doing these, with these two goals, we're accomplishing multiple different things. We're onboarding new developers. We're developing the monitoring software that can be used not just on participation nodes, but archive nodes, index nodes, relay nodes. Hopefully we'll be expanding into that space. And working towards delivering that enterprise-grade information services management portal. So when there's an outage of a relay node, people should know about it. There should be tracking. In a typical enterprise environment, you would know when it started, when it was fixed, how many people were involved in fixing it, what type of information did they prepare, or what type of observations did they make when they're investigating the problem, what was the solution. So we talk about transparency and the operations of the foundation. I think that transparency into infrastructure operations becomes very important.
I got a question. I'm not really sure which companies have used Pipeline for the UIs. I guess that goes to Aaron. He would probably know.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if anybody has, to be honest. I know that people are using the SDK, I believe. There's several different types of design systems we're doing. So we have a pure JavaScript solution, which is what AlgoPay and AlgoSwap are built with. And so those solutions are on between 50 and 70 websites each, AlgoPay and AlgoSwap. We help people almost on a daily basis integrate it into their platforms. And that's a pure JavaScript solution, right? So that you can just simply embed. Pipeline UI is really not supposed to be used for production applications as much as it is for designing developer tooling, right? So let's say, for example, you're a developer and you want to start building a production application on Algorand. With Pipeline UI, you can start iterating really quickly, right? And then as you build out a more full encompassing like website or platform, you'll want to do a bunch of customization stuff. So we've been contacted a whole bunch about customization services, but we don't have a large enough team yet to do custom work. And a lot of times what you see with design systems is the custom work they do is really what drives adoption. You'll have something like Bootstrap, for example, Blueprint.js, Semantic UI. These design systems, a lot of the work that's being done and what you see on the front end is custom work that's being done by the design team that built it. So as we continue to expand our development team, we'll be able to start doing a lot of custom work, and then you'll start seeing a bunch of custom Pipeline UI solutions. Now, going with that, our pipeline SDK, which is really at the core of it, wasn't fully featured until right now. So our current Algorand Foundation project that we're working on is basically building out the rest of the core SDK features that are going to allow developers to do things like, deploy smart contracts and everything. With our first iteration, you could do transactions, but there wasn't a whole lot beyond that we built into the pipeline SDK because we weren't working with smart contracts yet. That's why with both AlgoPay and AlgoSwap, they do not interact with smart contracts themselves. Like no custom smart contracts that we use with them, right? So they're just interacting with on-chain smart contracts that are already deployed. But with all of our new solutions that are coming out and the things that we're about to get audited, these are things with custom smart contracts that we're doing and a lot of stuff built into our SDK that allows for the deployment of custom smart contracts. And those are really important features that developers need to build production applications. So as we continue to work on this design system and the different pieces, you'll see a whole bunch more adoption as we continue to add on these features and make it even easier to build those templates for different sorts of applications with.
Thanks for that clarification. So it's like it's meant for developers to take the baton and run, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. So right now, Pipeline UI is strictly a design system kit that allows developers, especially if they're coming from other chains, to spin up production, or not production, but on-chain, mainnet dApps extremely quickly. So we have a video that we shared of a couple of our interns that never coded before, basically forking and deploying, mainnet transaction dApps in under 5 minutes with no coding experience, right? Because it's literally just basically, run and gun and what you can do with it, which is really, really valuable if you're coming from another chain and you kind of like, the way I like to learn about new languages or new things is to see something that's already working and kind of take it apart. And that's kind of our philosophy with what we do with Pipeline, is to like build stuff that people can see running, and then they can take it apart and see how it all works, and then they can put it back together in a way that's really effective for their use case.
I'm not a very technical person, but did someone from the audience or the speaker had a look at the technical side of the SDK of Headline?
It does not appear that anybody here has integrated it yet, but I assume that we'll be seeing a lot more of it, because we have never promoted it. That's an important thing, right? So we have pages on the Pipeline UI website about it, but beyond it working in all of our applications, so no matter what you're interacting with that we've built, you're interacting with the Pipeline SDK. But we've never done any promotion for it whatsoever. And especially, since we're going to be getting it audited, once that process is done, I don't believe it's going to take too much time. We're going to really start pushing adoption for it, because it makes all things really easy to do.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, Bilal, you want to go?
I was wondering, do you have an estimate of the cost of a relay node? How to set it up from start to the end?
So as far as I can speak a little bit on that, the cost of the relay node, operational expense, it varies by, do you have your own data center or are you operating in the public cloud? I'm not going to say whether fortunately or unfortunately, about 30 to 50% of the network, as far as relay nodes goes, these relay nodes are running in public cloud providers. So just for reference, what that means is, if you look at the link I showed with features in AlgoD Monitor software, one of the reports shown there is the hosts that your participation node is communicating with. and you'll see kind of the list of AWS hosts. There's some Google Cloud hosts in there. There's some Azure hosts. And if you're operating a relay node in a public cloud, it is going to be pretty expensive, and that's why the foundation is paying about 10,000 algos per month to node operators now. The people who are operating relay nodes, they have staked the majority of them in excess of 1 million algo with the foundation. So they do have a very considerable position as far as their Algorand holdings go.
Right, and also to run a relay node, you want it to have the highest caliber technology and equipment. It's not really great to have a relay node that's just using bare minimum specs. That's not really going to upgrade the network speed. So in addition to staking a lot of algo to show commitment, you also, I was talking to someone who was thinking of setting up a relay node, and he's thinking of using this core processor that's like tens of thousands of dollars and like getting a few of them to run it. So it's like, you have to have significant bags, honestly, if you want to run a relay node, and you have to really believe in the longevity of the Algorand system as a whole.
So right now, if you are a relay node, that means that Algorand has provisioned a DNS record for your node. They maintain, each of the relay nodes maintains a list of other relays, and you'll have a DNS record that's pointing to your server. So it is a very controlled system. Now, that said, anyone can start up their own relay node and use that in a private network. But as far as the global Algorand network that all of our, generally speaking, anyone who spins up a participation node, anyone who runs a archive node, those relay nodes are going to be the systems that you're communicating with. So enterprise, you need to have 11 nines of reliability, which means you have virtually no downtime. And that's why, as much as we see that offering from, hey, operation of relay nodes has been opened up for the community, and everyone thinks, oh, wow, I could run a relay node. Well, if you look at the list of people who are actually approved, the people who are providing the service to the community right now, it's interesting. It's kind of nice to know who they are. And one of the things we're doing is reaching out to these people and seeing how we can use their efforts. So a lot of them are developing their own custom monitoring solutions, and we would like to expand that to make it an open source project. But when you talk about high availability of systems, it needs to be able to restart anything that's not working. It needs to be polling different APIs, checking the response time. There's just a lot that goes into managing enterprise systems and making sure. So if you look at these participation node logs, and when I talk about the availability of the systems, if you look in the participation node logs, when a relay node goes down, you'll start seeing thousands and thousands of error messages. And if you're not looking, you'll never know what's happening. Thankfully, the network is pretty resilient. So we don't have any articles saying Algorand is down, right? Which is a good thing. We're not getting DDoS attacks. Is that because we're running in a public cloud? That's not I'm not here to make that decision. But if you are monitoring the logs, and if we build this community of participation node operators and archive node operators and index operators, then we start to get a holistic view of the health of the network. And if we start having people like Algo Explorer providing us health data, now we can pull their APIs and we can do it for ourselves, but if they provide health data from their systems, log data, that gives us more insight to the health of the network.
I just wanted to add, I just posted my Discord up there. I know recently we just had like the, Loud Defy and then like the Algo Walks and a lot of like, scam projects that come up here on the Algo space. So I made a Discord called Not Financial Advice, but I would like to like pull as much brain power into this community to understand, like when Algorand verifies something, that doesn't mean they're like a legit company like Algorand when did their DD. All they make sure is that they're verified from a website, So when that happens, it could be anyone. And that's just because, that's just part of decentralization. We can't rely on Algorand to say yes and no to who can come onto the network, So
Right.
it's up to us. It's up to us as a community to work together. So
Then here's the question: what's the point of even having the blue check if it really doesn't mean anything and it just means you have a website? It's so easy to make a website. I can make a website now in 10 minutes. Like, what's the point? What's the point of the blue check? Like, let's just do away with it. If it's not like there are, there's KinDAO, and then there's Monty's working on a project to verify like different things. But if it's just formality and decoration right now, do we really need it?
I think there could be some good collaboration between what you're doing there, along with Crypto Nerd. You have you're kind of building a central place for us to go to discuss and share information. Is that right?
He's got a cool Discord channel. I'm a member of it, and like I immediately when I log in, like I go to the shitcoin section and see like, okay, what's going on? What's the chatter here? And I hear what you're saying, Ibu. Like the what's the purpose of that check mark? And do we want them to really be the police of that? And I don't know. That seems like a slippery slope as well. How much do we want the foundation or Algorand proper to police what projects come up for review? I think it should be some kind of a decentralized, I don't know, a bunch of us voting on whether or not we think it's legitimate or not, or crowdsourced in some way, shape, or form. That's what I'm working on. But I agree. Rug pulls suck. So we need to police ourselves because clearly whatever's working now isn't working.
So is your portal, sorry, I haven't looked enough into it. Is your portal going to be something where people are actually meant to have that discussion? Or do we have our discussion kind of in the grassroots communities and then kind of just share information there?
So citrus.io will be a portal where you can log in, you can post projects, you can put reviews on projects, you can alert the community to what you think might be a scam, or just information will be uploaded there. It's not really meant to be a forum type of back and forth. It's more of a here's my review of this particular project, and then people can give that thumbs up, thumbs down kind of a thing. The Citrus team itself will also review them.
Can we get a link popped up for that? And then is there any way we can get that Discord? I think, what was it, Market Maker was talking about?
It's on top. I posted mine up there.
Oh, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll put citrus.io in there. It's literally just a landing page at this point. You should get a launch in March. We've got a pre-sale coming up next month as well. There is an ASA associated with it. There will be bounties paid if you are interacting with the community and posting valuable information for the rest of the users.
The way mine works is it's like a structure, like kind of like when you if you're a known developer, I give you a developer spot. If you're like a content creator, like Monty, I give you a content creator spot. If you're an artist, I give you like an NFT artist. If you're on NFT Explorer, I give you an NFT spot. And if you're like a guy that I say like, hey, he does his research, I do my research spot. And I got just different levels. That way you can kind of like call upon different people. And maybe we could like have like a central place, like, all right, this guy is the developer of this project because I went on here. And I know that this group of people went and verified that this is real,
Okay, and do you have like a range or rating system of legitimacy, or is it just kind of like an open discussion type format?
Open discussion, man. Nothing is financial advice.
I got you.
Hey, Cody, remind me, I need to send you a couple of like the doodles I've been doing lately. Just make sure that you understand how much of an artist I am. So it's important.
He wants that tag.
Is that Gary V we're talking to?
Does anybody from the audience have questions that they want to ask before we wrap this up? We've been going for
it's been an amazing call, actually. We've been going for a while. Just wondering if anyone has any more questions that they want to propose and ask some of the people in this chat.
If there's
sorry, I was just gonna ask, how hard is it exactly to set up a node? I haven't like really looked into it at all myself, and I haven't like I don't even know where you'd find like solid resources right now at this point to get it going.
I can put up a link with some references for documentation from the developer portal. They do have really good information out there. One of the things I like to do is condense it, get down to, and they actually do a phenomenal job of that already. But for reference, I've got a page about the generation of participation keys, and I have a page about signing transactions offline. And both of those pages have references to the 4 or 5 different pages from the foundation that you need to get that information. So I'll definitely get something put up there here. One other thing that I'd like to share is the roadmap that we have put out for AlgoD Monitor software. I'll put that up at the top right now. I did mention a little bit. A big part of it is building community. Another really great solution that we want to offer is this network health portal. So you do have a place where you can go and see a map and see the location of different nodes on that map. You'll be able to click on them and get health statistics. As far as polling goes, we can pull the APIs from big API providers like PureStake and Algo Explorer. But we'll also start off with, anyone who runs AlgoD Monitor on a participation node, we're going to enable telemetry transport. So you'll be able to see health information from all of the participation nodes that are running AlgoD Monitor. You'll be able to see how frequently they're voting in consensus. You'll be able to see the uptime, synchronization status, and we'll move forward with reporting error messages and warning messages to get a better sense of what's going right or wrong with the AlgoD process, or what's going right or wrong on the network that's causing issues to occur. So let me just share this up real quick. The roadmap should be posted now. And beyond this network health portal, the second thing we want to do is, right now there is no incentive, monetary incentive, to run a participation node. The software has a feature built into it called participation rewards, and you have participation nodes, but right now the foundation doesn't pay participation rewards to participation node operators. So that could change in the future. We hope it does, of course. Participation nodes is a better way of building a community at the base level, rather than saying you need to stake 1 million algos to run a relay node. So the more part node operators we have, and the more stake that they have delegated to their node, it also supports the growth of the ecosystem, because if you're earning rewards relative from the transaction fees, if you're earning rewards relative to the stake that you have on your participation node, the more secure the network is, the higher the online stake goes. And we like to see the price go up. So we can say the more online stake there is, that's also a metric that has some correlation with the price of the token. So now, not everyone is going to want to operate a participation node. Some people, they'll look at our current proposal, should it be 250 or 350? And they'll say, I can't afford either one of those, but how can I participate? And the goal here is participation. It's building the community. So what we're also working on is a participation key portal, where anyone, now on Algorand you have spending keys and participation keys. Anyone can go into this portal, they can generate a participation key, and they can delegate that key to a node operator. Now we're supporting the network, as I said. We're bringing up the online stake, and hopefully we'll be able to pay out rewards as a community to people who have done this. So of course, if you are running a participation node, you deserve a little bit more of that rewards pool. But if you're participating by holding algo, that's also supporting the entire ecosystem. So making it accessible to everyone by having that portal where anyone can generate keys and delegate them to a node, we believe that's a very powerful concept. Be glad to have some feedback.
Yeah, we've heard a lot, Silvio Micali talk against rewarding the participation node. Do you know why would he take such a position and why you disagree with him?
Sorry, you said you heard from?
From Silvio Micali.
From Silvio on the concept of rewarding participation nodes. Well, that would be interesting. You know, I don't think I would ever want to disagree with him, but I guess you don't want to contribute to anything that makes it possible to monopolize the supply of the token.
I could see it like maybe not from a root level of the blockchain. You know, maybe have the community develop that instead of just, it being programmed and immutable.
Yeah, Silvio's stance on this kind of subject was that he wanted to take the incentive away, or rather put the incentive on decentralization and consensus, or of the consensus mechanism, and that's the concept that he came up with, rather than incentive for miners, because then the people who can afford more nodes will just get more rewards, whereas the way it currently is set up, you get the same amount of rewards percentage-wise, regardless of what you hold. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree with you, Cody and AlgoD, that it's a cool idea that it could be a community-started initiative to help spin up more participation nodes and then get that rewarded via that treasury. So if I were to vote on your proposal, I'd probably vote for option B, the 350, because I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah. But I think Silvio's vision was that the participation node should be so cheap to run that it's like running Gmail. This example he uses, right? Everyone you start up your browser, you have Gmail in the background, no one cares. It should be that simple. I think the ultimate vision is, for example, maybe as part of the Algorand wallet, when it launches on your mobile phone, it's running a participation node. So I mean, I think that was his that your incentive is, if you hold Algorand, your incentive, it costs you nothing to run a participation node, right? You should just you'll run it. I mean, I think that was his rationale. That's how I recall.
So I think one question here is, will it be the case if there are billions and billions of assets and other stuff? Someone much more familiar with the consensus algorithm can comment on that, because participation nodes are the ones that creates blocks. So there is one dimension that the number of transactions per block is going to increase, and then there are a number of assets, and they need to keep some limited data at least to be able to do that. So someone can tell us whether the requirements will remain low or it will increase.
That's a good point, because on the last Twitter space that Algorand hosted, there was talk about when the TPS goes up, there'll be higher. Not so much with the 10,000, but when to support 46K, the hardware requirements will go up. So perhaps that was, that's a good point, because I think Silvio's vision was to make the participation node so cheap to run that it's basically back. The cost is practically, it just runs on your whatever computer you're running.
Consumer grade electronics.
It just runs in the background. You know,
maybe this has to do with their Algorand's connection to the Helium network, which is, if you're not aware, for anyone listening, it's a decentralized Internet of Things that, a lot of random things like your fridge can host and like proliferate Wi-Fi. Maybe they will integrate that kind of technology into Algorand or the Algorand wallet or whatever it may be. So whoever opens it up, kind of like Oyster's saying, like Gmail, if you just have it active, it will just pop in as a node, and then once you close it, it'll close out.
The important aspect of the consensus protocol is that a participation node has to respond in time. You have votes broadcast, and then you have votes accepted. And if they're not responding in time, then the security of the proof of stake, the consensus mechanism, it's not compromised, but it's less efficient. So how long do we wait for a participation node to respond? That's the key. And do we want to have people, just as much as we consider that the capabilities of consumer grade electronics will continue to grow at an exponential rate, therefore the ability to run a participation node on your mobile device may be realized. However, mobile devices are going to be turning on and off all the time. So do we want a bunch of transactions out there that say this wallet is participating in consensus, only to find out that the node is not actually online? And that's where the health monitoring portal comes into play. So I would argue that right now, if you consider the centralization of relay nodes, and if you realize for what it is, the centralization of consensus in the few hands of participation node operators is also a reality. So we don't want necessarily to run them on a device that's not going to be consistently online. That's going to cause more errors in the software. And secondarily, we do want to support the decentralization of it.
But
so by providing the go ahead.
No, sorry. No, I was just wondering, like, by not providing any reward, isn't it to avoid hardware centralization like Bitcoin?
So that's the thing, is by creating a portal where anyone can go, sign into this portal, connect your wallet, generate a participation key, and delegate it to a node, then we can all participate in consensus. And as that online state continues to grow, the network, the ecosystem will continue to develop. I think it's a wonderful metric. The online stake is a great metric. We have a very, look at the governors. Look at the big question everyone should be asking is, why do we have more algo in governance than we have in participation nodes? People are looking for money. But when you look at the simplicity of how to generate participation keys, which I can share an article, there's several steps involved. If we eliminate that complexity and make it so everyone in this call has a part key delegated to a participation node, the online stake is rising, which is a metric of the health of the ecosystem.
Yeah, but
so
that's the problem. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
We don't
because
want
it's the whole idea is to not reproduce the delegated model, and to have, that's why it's called pure proof of stake, because there is no delegation.
Right.
Well, the argument is centralization and decentralization. So pure proof of stake, we are randomly selecting these 1,000 participants every 4.5 seconds. So we're not really centralizing it in the hands of the participation node operators, because everyone with a wallet is able to generate a participation key. And the reason you want it to be decentralized fully is because if those participation nodes are compromised, now you have a problem with the security of the network. That's why we want more participation nodes. See, if you listen to Silvio, he'll tell you we don't know which 1,000 systems would need to be compromised to have a successful attack on the network, because every 4.5 seconds you're selecting a different group. Now, keep in mind that we haven't even really talked anything about information security. We've talked about the node software, we've talked about node monitoring, but the next real objective that everyone needs to take seriously is the security, the patching, and maintenance of the software that's running on the node outside of the node process. So, forward-looking statement, rather than just looking at the health of the node, the health of the processes, you need to start to have a holistic view of security across the entire ecosystem. Everyone who's running a participation node, everyone who's running an archive or indexer, are they maintaining the latest patches to ensure that that system is secure? What type of information monitoring systems are the security systems on the network that node is connected to? Is it enterprise grade? Is it consumer grade? How big is the stake? So on and so forth. So if we have a network where we know everything is very, very secure, you would be better off delegating your keys, your participation key, to secure systems.
The delegation key, that model won't, it goes against the whole, like Bilal was saying, the whole pure proof of stake model. It goes against the whole Silvio's, the pure proof of stake. It just is in direct conflict. It breaks it down, right? We're going back to delegated proof of stake. But I agree with everything except participation nodes, because I think, and there has to be more work done in participation nodes in terms of making them more efficient, so that it can be run on a Raspberry Pi today.
You can run it on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
That's actually the nodes that we're selling. The first iteration is based on the Raspberry Pi. So it is a very efficient protocol. There is no high compute expense associated.
Well, as for example, as we move towards 46K, like they talked about, that's because the idea is, the vision again is that process should just run in the background of any kind of device. There should be billions of participation nodes running, and just in the background, that basically just in the background.
So you can't run it necessarily in the background on a mobile device. The main problem there is the system has to be online, because if the system's not online, then when we randomly select that system as a wallet,
not yet, right? But today it's not today, right? It needs to be online. But if your device is running,
if you want to kind of blast yourself with 5G microwaves, and run a node on your system, the other problem that comes into play is you have vote broadcast and vote acceptance, and it needs to be in a very timely manner.
Yeah, but that's where the future. I think that's where Silvio's vision is, with the participation nodes, with pure proof of stake. Now, indexer nodes, archival nodes, relay nodes, different story.
Yeah, when you talk about the 46K TPS, the system requirements are going to increase on the relay nodes, and not necessarily increase, but it's going to be a little bit more intensive. Of course, it's going to be slightly more intensive on a participation node too. But right now, if you're talking about like an ARM, either like a 4-core, 6-core processor, the utilization is very, very low. So I don't think that these, and when I'm talking very low, your CPU use is in the 20-30% range. You do see a spike, for example, when SIAE, the European Copyright Organization, they just started sending millions of transactions for pieces of work that they were registering. You do see an increase at times like that, but it's negligible. So now, delegating, I think there's a little misconception there between the delegation of your keys, because what we're encouraging is a broader participation and expanded security. So the online stake, and if we're going to pay rewards to people with an online stake, it shouldn't be dominated by the whales. It should be any and everyone who's holding algo. And realistically, the rewards should be capped in favor of small holders versus large holders. And then you can say, oh, someone's going to game the system, but there's a lot more maintenance involved there, because you have to go in, you have to generate your key, you have to renew your key. So
yeah, but I think that the idea is participation. There are no rewards. I mean, I know you're arguing, you're making a case for it, but I support not having rewards for participation, because it's so cheap to run that it just runs.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So we're not necessarily lobbying the foundation to start paying us here. What we're talking about is a community-based reward program as a means to encourage participation, not just in consensus, but in a group of people who kind of have this drive to become more educated about how it all works, and to be a part of a group of people who is expanding into providing infrastructure for the network. So not just participation nodes, but archive, index, etc.
Yeah, I mean that's we definitely need that. We definitely need indexers to support the ecosystem and incentives to run them. Definitely.
Guys, I gotta drop out. Been a great call today, and I will see you all next Sunday. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump out as well, unless anybody has any questions about any Reach projects, which would be, of course, Reach and Humble and Game Jam and Project Monarch.
Oh, actually, Chris, I have a question about Humble. I tried it a little bit.
Sure.
You know, like the slippage option, like it's how, like, just as a user, like I felt like.
You there? Did I lose you, Bilal?
Yeah, we lost him there.
Okay.
Seemed like he was talking about slippage.
Sorry, guys. Twitter kicked me out, so I'm back. Yeah, I was just wondering about the Humble swap. What is the? Do you think we can have a way, like we can have a kind of double model for Humble, like a very beginner like interface and a more advanced interface, to have the people and the users decide what kind of level suits them best?
Yeah, for sure. What features are you thinking that you would want on beginner and what on advanced?
Yeah, you know, like Binance is doing with their light model and pro model. I've always dreamed about like something like that for DEX, where you can go further if you want, and you can make it very simple. You can have just a simple swap, like 2 buttons, etc. And yeah, I'm just wondering, just like that. But I really love it. Like I tried it, and yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, the whole idea with Humble is that there will be different layers of user experience, because obviously, I mean, we're gonna have like, so Michelle, who is the head of customer success, is starting on Monday, and what her goal is, we're gonna have live chats. We're gonna have the ability for people to ask questions that like how to use this and what does it mean. That's all gonna be built in. And then for the more advanced users, we're going to have limit orders and yield farming and everything of that sort. So there's definitely going to be multiple different tiers of user experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
No problem.
I love yield farming.
You do. I bet you do. Who doesn't? But yeah, like I'm kicking around new ideas about how to actually do it. So one of the big problems with liquidity mining is that it incentivizes mercenaries, where they'll just bring their money until the extra reward is gone, and they'll just move it somewhere else and just move it back and forth. So it doesn't really have any much sticking to it, like stickiness to it. I think I figured out a way to incentivize where they get rewarded, but they're also rewarded to stick around even after the fact of them after being rewarded. So that's one of the things that's coming with Humble.
Can you tell us more about the DAO mechanism that you're working on, like with Jay?
Which DAO?
Like the DAO for, yeah, you building, you talked about this DAO, your DAO tools you're building?
So we're building 3 different DAOs because both, all 3 of our projects have a DAO aspect to it. So Humble will have a DAO that will manage the overall treasury and dictate the actual features that Humble will have. Game Jam will have a DAO that will choose which games to actually invest in to bring into the system. And then Monarch DAO is an entire DAO governance protocol that will use smart NFTs as the voting vehicle, but it will be actually like a DAO of DAOs where it'll be in a complete overall ecosystem where no matter which DAO that you're actually part of, you are going to also be part of the overall ecosystem as well, which I think is pretty neat. So which one?
Sounds very Lord of the DAOs. One DAO to rule them all.
I wouldn't say it's one DAO to rule them all. It's one DAO. So it's like a community of DAOs is actually what Monarch is, where it's a tool system for anybody to be able to, especially the creators that want to provide more utility to their NFTs, that they can easily stand up a DAO or governance system with multiple tiers of voting power. But anybody that purchases one of these NFTs for the voting of individual DAOs has the ability to use that same NFT to vote in the overall DAO ecosystem as well. And it's pretty elegant economic system that kind of all feeds into each other. I'm pretty excited about.
Could you put the link up there, because I'm not sure I found it on Twitter yet.
It's not public yet.
Oh, it's not public. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. That sounds amazing because anybody can use it to create his own DAO, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much a so yes, it is a pretty strict format on how the DAO would work. Meaning that, I mean, that being said, it's going to be a one-to-many token system where there's going to be one token for the entire ecosystem, and then each DAO will be able to have their own token. But the token isn't actually voting power. The token is a reward system that allows for the DAO to reward their users to do things that they believe is reward worthy. And with that, they can then use it to upgrade their NFTs to multiple levels to have more voting power in the overall system. So yeah, I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. That sounds awesome.
I'm thoroughly impressed. I think at one point we had 130 folks in here just interested, talking about. It seems like primarily governance was on everybody's mind today. We even had people from the foundation in here earlier. I saw Addie, and I think I saw, did I see Autumn in here as well? A couple of others, I think.
PG was in here.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting that, everybody's stopping by and taking notice. I've got to drop off as well, folks, but it's easy to slip by and realize, oh, shoot, it's been 3 hours. Because the engagement is so high, right? It's interesting.
And it was very interesting. Algo Monitor is very brought a lot of thoughts, and yeah, thank you, Algo.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, I'm gonna head out. I don't know how much longer you guys are gonna do it, but I'm done.
Yeah, me too. Let's stop at 3 hours. That's a long one. Thank you very much, my friends, and see you next weekend. And let's see how the process goes with the decentralization and the governance vote.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice day.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye.